Hello, my name is Sile Walsh and I specialise in leadership. My background's in coaching psychology and organisational development. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to talk about the 5 key things you can do to support your team and communication when they're working remotely or from different locations. So the first one is that the purpose of communication is often about connection, empathy, and clarity. And this is no different if you're working remotely. It's really important that you think about, is my communication creating connection, developing empathy, and is it clearly communicating a message? The purpose of the connection is that when people feel connected, they tend to respond to communication more. The purpose of empathy is that if you are just sending out messages to people and you're not really taking into account where they're at, they're very, very unlikely going to be able to take account of where you're at. And in terms of clarity, the whole point of communicating is bringing a message. And so is it clear what you're trying to communicate? The second thing that you need to think about when your team is dispersed is team building. How are we going to create team cohesiveness while we're all in different locations? And that will look different for every team, but it's something to think about when you're thinking about your communication. If you haven't created that team cohesiveness, it's going to be really hard for communication to be clear because it will mean different things to different people and people will interpret it differently, which creates that Chinese whispers that can occur. The third one is checking in. Unlike working in the same office or in the same shared space, we don't need to necessarily be so intentional about checking in because we'll notice people's faces. We'll notice if they're struggling. We'll notice when we're at the coffee or we're getting at the water cooler. We will notice things. We don't have that now. So we need to make more of an effort to check in and see how they're doing on an emotional level and not just on a work performance level. The reason that we do this intentionally is that it happens unconsciously when we share space with people. And sometimes we can forget that actually we need to be intentional about it when we're in different spaces. The fourth one is thinking about how people prefer to communicate. So some people, what I'm noticing across different organizations is that they prefer to communicate with a video or not with a video, over the phone, via email, via chat. We need to think about how people like to communicate and if that way of communicating is creating cohesiveness or creating a challenge. And then the last one, and this is something that has come to the forefront since the pandemic, is processes and procedures. Do the processes and procedures that this organisation have actually facilitate the reality of working from different locations? Or are they outdated and therefore creating restrictions that could be really helpful to address and build in a process and some kind of protection around? So we need to think about, are the processes and procedures fit for purpose for my team to perform? So they're my 5 recommendations. So the first one is focus on connection, empathy, and clarity. Second one is team building. Third one is checking in on a personal level. Fourth one is considering people's preference for communication. And the fifth one is to address processes and procedures. You can find out more at SileWalsh.com. I hope that was helpful. Thank you.